Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is from Canto 2, Chapter 8, and Text 29. We're very fortunate to have Her Grace Vrindavaneswari Radhika from ISKCON, Philadelphia. Mataji, it's very nice to see you.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you
Hare
too,
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Yeah.
Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada.
It's all yours now. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Mhm.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astatarya Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astatarya Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Gitar Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mayapurdam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavanam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Ganga
Jai.
Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur
Jai.
Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories ye assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories ye assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories ye assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Hare
Oh,
Hare
God,
Bol.
it's the Guru and Guru.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Jatotayam Adiriyat Nastaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're reading from the second canto, chapter 8, and we're reading verse 29, which is going to wrap us up for this chapter, which is questions by King Parīkṣit. I'm going to read it 3 times, the Sanskrit, and then we can take turns practicing. Yadya Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Anyone else like to chant?
Yat Yat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Anyone else like to chant?
Hare Krishna. Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tatsarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, everyone's busy on a Friday morning. Okay, let's go to word for word. Yat yat, whatsoever. Parīkṣit, the king. ṛṣabhaḥ, the best. Pāṇḍūnām, in the dynasty of Pāṇḍu. Anupṛcchati, goes on inquiring anupṛcchati, the beginning to the end. Tat, all those. Sarvam, fully. Ākyātum, to describe. Upacakrame, he just prepared himself. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parīkṣit had inquired from him. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the best in the dynasty of the Pāṇḍūs, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. Purport. Mahārāja Parīkṣit asked many questions, some of them very curiously, to know things as they are. But it is not necessary for the master to answer them in the order of the disciples' inquiries, one after the other. But Shukadeva Goswami, experienced teacher that he was, answered all the questions in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession, and he answered all of them without exception. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Questions by King Parīkṣit. Om Jnana-Tamaranjasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ulmanatam Yena Tashme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Svadpatantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Satikor Bhaktarinda Vanchakalpa Trubhisha Kripa Sindhu Vaivya Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Chara Swamaniti Namane Snigta Chait Surpanada Vagmanam Jarasa Pladam Radhika Prananam Bhakti Chara Padam. So I'll read the translation again. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parīkṣit had inquired from him. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the best in the dynasty of the Pāṇḍūs, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. So today we're going to do a nice review because I think it's really important to understand, to hear again, just through just reading all of them together. What were the questions that were asked by King Parīkṣit? And then we'll talk a little bit about the mood that he was approaching these questions. So King Parīkṣit's initial questions started off in the first canto were, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who was to die very shortly? So after he was cursed to die after a bite from the snake bird, Mahārāja Parīkṣit immediately knew he had 7 days to live. And he very wisely asked this question of what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? So he's not just asking for himself here. He's asking on behalf of everybody. So he's a very elevated ruler, a very elevated king, a very elevated devotee as well. And so his mood and his motivation in all of this was to help those that come after him. So he wasn't in a panic. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Please just save me. He was in the mood of, I'm about to die. Please help me understand the duty of everyone in all circumstances. It's very broad. Everyone and all circumstances. So that's all living entities essentially in any possible circumstance. And then he wanted to know how to deal with his own situation and set the example of someone who is in his very situation. So this sets the scene. This is setting the tone for these conversations between Sukadeva Goswami and King Parīkṣit. Now he's approaching Sukadeva Goswami as this very elevated sage, and because Sukadeva Goswami is he's only speaking from the parampara. He's speaking from that disciplic succession. King Parīkṣit knows that he is the authority. He is the one to be asking these things because he is speaking very authentically and very without any sort of tainting or influence from anything else. He's literally just getting the information directly through that line of disciplic succession, that parampara. So in this chapter, there are very specific questions that King Parīkṣit is asking of Shukadeva Goswami that are very elevated. And the first one is, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? So here, King Parīkṣit is inquiring about Narada Muni, and I'm going to talk about Narada Muni in a bit, but he knows that Narada Muni is the most elevated of the sages, and because he's the son of also the son of Lord Brahma, he was hearing everything directly from Lord Brahma. So he wanted to understand how Narada Muni was then taking these instructions by Lord Brahma and passing that and disseminating that information. So how is he explaining all of these qualities of the Lord as he heard it? So this is a very interesting question. It says, because he's very clear to say, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma. So Narada Muni is, because he's receiving that instruction from Lord Brahma, he's also disseminating the information as if it is coming straight from Lord Brahma, because he is very transparent to that parampara for him. So the next question is, transcendental spirit soul is different from the body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this? So the transcendental spirit soul is different from the body. So he's understanding that I am not this body. The spirit is different. There's the difference between the material body and the spirit soul. So King Parīkṣit is offering that understanding here, but he wants to know how the body is acquired. How does one come to this body, an Indian body, a black body, a white body? How does one come to that body, a body with disabilities? So he wants to know how one, or a body of an animal or a tree. He wants to know, how does one come to that body? Is it accidental, or is there some sort of cause? So now he's asking Shukadeva Goswami to really explain this. And we, in our understanding, we can see that he's really starting to get into some discussions or some inquiries about the effects of karma and the modes. So, but we're not here to answer these questions today. So my goal is not to answer any of these questions or to discuss them. I just want to review them. Then the third question he asks is, what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and those of common living entities? So the difference between the body of the Lord and those of common living entities. And because we can often hear the descriptions, in Shastra, we hear the Lord has a body, arms, legs, a face. So he wants to know, well, what's the difference? If I see that these common living entities have seemingly similar qualities to the body of the Lord, what is the difference then between the two? So this is a sober question. It's a very astute question. And it can help one to really dispel any or any disbeliefs about the Lord appearing in a form, which is part of Bhagavad Gita, right? In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears as Krishna in a form, in the form of a human. However, it says, "Fools deride me who do not understand the nature of my birth." And so this is the thing that comes up in Bhagavad Gita too, is that people oftentimes say that Krishna in Bhagavad Gita was just an elevated person, and this is stripping away. This is the concept that Krishna actually is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and really just lowering him to an ordinary person that just has a lot of great qualities, which we know otherwise, right? So here King Parīkṣit really wants to understand what makes the Lord different. So if we know intellectually that the Lord is not, even though he has descended as Krishna in that time frame, that he is not like us, King Parīkṣit wants to know why. What makes him not like those living entities? And here's the next question is, please also explain the personality of Godhead. That's a very big question in itself. I mean, I think that a lot of the Shastra is looking to explain the personality of Godhead. What are his pastimes? What are his qualities? How does one worship the personality of Godhead? So these are this is a very big question. And I think and you can see how, we're in the early parts of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you can see from this very question alone, please also explain the personality of Godhead, how you can see the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam unfolding even from this question, because we see the different incarnations. And I also give class for the Bhagavatam class in ISKCON Philadelphia, and we just wrapped up the chapter of the incarnation of Lord Varaha, who comes as a boar. So, this is coming specifically from this question alone. It's to say, okay, there's, Lord Varaha, there's, Lord Ram, there's Nrsimhadev. So you can see these are the different aspects and the incarnations of the Lord as well. What is the actual position of the different planetary systems? This is the next question. So getting into the cosmos, the cosmology of the different planetary systems, and this very much, there's different parts of Bhagavatam that get into this question. It delved into a little bit in early part of Canto 3, also Canto 5. But this is something that, as we can see scientists all around trying to explain the cosmos. Neil deGrasse Tyson, if anyone's ever heard of Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson is one example of that of many scientists that are out there that are really trying to explain the different planetary systems. So King Parīkṣit is wanting to know the deeper understanding, because what these astrophysicists are really explaining in their studies is a very limited aspect of the cosmos, of the planetary systems, because they're really only looking at the material elements. So if you're only looking at the material elements of the cosmos, you're missing 99% of it, because there's all the different spiritual energies that are involved in the planetary systems that we can't see with our naked eye, because they're not on they're not on the same material platform. So King Parīkṣit's asking well beyond what the Neil deGrasse Tysons of the world are asking. That he's really wanting to get into the depth of understanding the different planetary systems and creation, right? And so his next question then gets into, please explain the duration of time between creation and annihilation, and that of other subsidiary creations, as well as the nature of time, indicated by the sound of past, present, and future. Also, please explain the duration and measurement of life of the different living beings known as demigods, the human beings, etc., in different planets of the universe. This alone, again, like I said, in the Philadelphia class, we're in a canto ahead. And when there's various points where these discussions of creation and annihilation come up. And when you start really diving into some of these questions, it's very, very complex. And so, we'll get into how these questions, late in a minute, how these questions are going to be answered, but how they can serve us in present day. So we'll just leave it as face value. King Parīkṣit's asking about creation, time, the nature of lifespans and such. So we're on to question number 7. In terms of the verses. Please also explain the cause of the different durations of time, both short and long, as well as the beginning of time following the course of action. Next question. Describe how the proportionate accumulation of the reactions resulting from the different modes of material nature act upon the desiring living being, promoting or degrading him among the different species of life, beginning from the demigods down to the most insignificant creatures. So here, what he's asking about, how do the modes of material nature act on living entities? Right? And he says promoting or degrading him. So we can understand the modes of material nature of the modes of goodness or the mode of ignorance, the two different opposite spectrums. We have mode of passion wedged in the middle there. The mode of goodness can elevate us. The mode of ignorance can degrade degrade us, and in the next lifetime can actually, promote or demote us to different species of life in the next lifetime, depending on how we are attached and behaving in this current lifetime. So modes of material nature, very important topic. The next question, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky and the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, and their different kinds of inhabitants takes place. So how are the different planetary systems, how is life, essentially, this is asking, how is life unfolding? How is life taking place in all of creation? What are the activities? How are different living entities coming to being? And this is, getting into the cycles of birth and death. Number 10, please describe the inner and outer space of the universe by specific divisions, as well as characters and activities of the great souls. So again, more into the cosmos, inner and outer space of the universe. The next question, please explain all the different ages and the durations of creation, and also the durations of such ages. So what's this one talking about? He's specifically asking about the different yugas, all the different yugas and how they cycle, and the manus, the ages of Manu. And they can be broken down and broken down and broken down. In a day of Brahma, in an hour of Brahma, all of these things in an entire lifespan of Lord Brahma. So these are all broken down into the yugas, the cycles of the manus, more and more down to just a year that we experience. Please also explain what may generally be the common religious affiliations of human society, as well as their occupational duties in religion. And that was very self-explanatory, right? How do humans get involved? How do humans connect and understand the Lord? Kindly explain all about the elementary principles of creation, the number of such elementary principles, their causes, their development, and their process of devotional service. What are the opulences of the great mystics, and what is their ultimate realization? This one's interesting because he's getting into not just discussion about the ordinary spirit souls or about the Lord, but he's talking about the great mystics as well, the sages. How does the perfect mystic become detached from the subtle astral body? What is the basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, including the branches of history and the supplementary Puranas? This is a lot, right? The basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures. I mean, again, this is really, he's trying to ask a question to distill down, what everything is that's out there, and understanding all of the different branches of the Vedas, which there are many. Some of the Vedas are going into very practical. A lot of the Vedas are meant for very practical life, to help navigate life in a very practical way while maintaining a connection to spirit, to God, but living in a very practical way, versus the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is completely dedicated to understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotees. The next question is, please explain unto me how the living beings are generated, how they are maintained, and how they are annihilated. Tell me also of the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. And then the last one is, please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created, and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. So, whoa, that's a lot. A lot of questions, a lot of really heavy, deep questions. And Shukadev Goswami is not at all perturbed. Not at all. Not at all perturbed. And as Prabhupada said in his purport, it's not necessary for him to answer all these questions. He's very expert. He is a master, the teacher. but he takes each and every question and he answers them in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession. And he answered all of them without exception. This is for the highest good. So what is the purpose of all of this inquiry from King Parīkṣit? We know that we can come to understand that King Parīkṣit was not asking this for his benefit at this point completely, because he's already a devotee of the Lord. He knows he has 7 days to live, and he is asking this for the benefit of all humanity, all living entities, so that they may get this knowledge. This knowledge may be recorded and passed on generation to generation to generation. So King Parīkṣit is really serving, he's a devotee of the Lord and he's cursed to die. One could say, how could this happen to someone? How could this happen to someone like this? He's such a great devotee. Why would he have a curse and be cursed to die so quickly? But in devotional life, especially when one is a beloved of the Lord, they want to be used as a tool, as an instrument of the Lord. And in this way, King Parīkṣit was an instrument for delivering the Srimad Bhagavatam, and enabled the recitation, like Shukadeva Goswami, for the Srimad Bhagavatam to be breathed into a deeper existence that allowed this continuation of knowledge to occur. So King Parīkṣit was very deeply serving this role of helping to perpetuate, to solidify the Srimad Bhagavatam for generations to come. And this is the highest. This is really the highest that one can offer service. And so he's asking these questions on behalf of others, and he's also asking them not just in a very casual way. He's not asking them in a challenging way. He's asking them very submissively. And so I'm going to read something from Bhagavad Gita. And this is chapter 4, text 38. It's tadbihi pranipatena pariprashenena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. And the translation is, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. I'm going to read a little bit of Prabhupada's purport here because it's very much related to this situation with King Parīkṣit. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dharmam hi shakshad bhagavad pranitam. The path of realization is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. So this really, this verse really encapsulates that relationship between the teacher and the student in this spiritual sense. Because Shukadeva Goswami is asking very submissively King Parīkṣit is asking Shukadeva Goswami in a very submissive manner. And Shukadeva Goswami is reciting what he has received from Narada Muni. And Narada Muni is getting it directly from his father, Lord Brahma. And so, and I wanted to read in the Bhagavatam, actually in just this canto in an earlier chapter. It says, Sri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. And again, the purport here is the perfection of the parampara system, or the path of disciplic succession, is further confirmed. So we're getting a double confirmation here, because Narada Muni, we know, was referenced in these questions. We know that Sukadeva Goswami has heard that from Narada Muni. So we're now confirming this disciplic succession. And it says, Narada asked to receive the knowledge, and Brahmaji imparted it upon being asked. Therefore, asking for transcendental knowledge from the right person and receiving it properly is the regulation of the disciplic succession. This process is recommended by the Bhagavad Gita 4:2. The inquisitive student must approach a qualified spiritual master to receive transcendental knowledge by surrender, submissive inquiries, and service. Knowledge received by submissive inquiries and service is more effective than knowledge received in exchange for money. A spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from Brahma and Narada has no demand for dollars and cents. A bona fide student has to satisfy him by his sincere service to obtain knowledge in the relation and nature of the individual soul and super soul. And that's it. That is the crux of what is happening here in these questions. This is that submissive inquiry. And as we look into our own lives, and I always like to kind of wrap it up with a practical application. And as we look into our own lives, we're here obviously for a reason, and meaning here in Bhagavatam class, also here in the material world. We've all come to these material energies for some reason or another. But we're here in Bhagavatam class for a reason too. And that reason is likely that we want to hear from an authoritative source the pastimes of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. That is the purpose of Bhagavatam class and association too. But how do we ask questions? And it's not to say we shouldn't ask questions. Prabhupada encouraged his disciples to ask questions. And his disciples even challenged him sometimes, and Prabhupada never faltered. And he didn't even, a lot of times he accepted those challenges. It was an opportunity for him to help that student, to help that disciple gain a deeper understanding and to learn how to be a good disciple and to be a good devotee. And asking questions is essential. We have to ask questions to learn. And it's one of the things that's been proven, even academically. The student that asks more questions in class is far more likely to understand the content than those who sit back and just accept everything. And why is that? It is because asking questions helps the brain contextualize the information. Asking questions engages the brain in the content. So when we ask questions, and this is something for life in general, that oftentimes we might see people that are in the mode of I'm afraid to ask questions, or I'm afraid to raise my hand and be that person that looks like they don't know the answer to something, or looks like they don't understand the content that the teacher's providing, the speaker's providing. And I challenge you on that. I strongly challenge anybody who has ever been afraid to ask questions in a class, or been afraid to be the one that raises their hand and says, I don't understand this, this content. Can you please explain this to me a little bit more deeply or break it down for me? I challenge you to ask more questions in life and in your spiritual life. If you have a spiritual teacher that, you know, a guru, if you're just sitting in Bhagavatam class at your local temple, whatever that is, ask questions. And of course, we're not trying to be like, hey, I heard that, because that's not submissively asking a question. If you're coming out just being super challenging, like, you know, we want to ask questions in a submissive way to say, my understanding of this is such, and I'm feeling confused. I'm needing some clarification. Can you please help me? And that is the submissive question. That's the submission in the question, is that because we're giving space. When we ask a question in a challenging way, we're in like, you know, really kind of throwing down the gauntlet and challenging someone, we're not open. You know, you see people, it's more of they're picking a fight. They're trying to stoke the fires of an argument. They're not really trying to learn. They're trying to prove their own point by under the guise of a question. You've all seen it. We've all seen it, right? And maybe even at the temple, maybe even in Bhagavatam class, someone might just be asking a very challenging question that they're really just looking to stir the pot a little bit and not actually be wanting to receive the answer from that person or to learn or to shift their mindset on something. That's not the mood we're looking for. We really, because that's not helping anyone, and that's not opening our minds up to learning. That's not opening our hearts up to the Lord in that challenging spirit. So the submissive, and we in today's society, we can become very sensitive to the word submissive because it may feel that being submissive means being a doormat, getting walked all over, getting treated badly. That's not the submissiveness that is brought about in this inquiry. Is, as I described it, to be open to learning and to be open to hearing and wanting to hear what the other person has to say, so that we can integrate it in our own minds and better understand. So we can't understand and we can't absorb and we can't learn if we are not in a submissive mood. And if we're not in a mood that allows space for lack of knowing. If we think we know it all, you know, or if we're afraid, you know, a lot of times the know-it-alls are just afraid to look like they don't know everything. Even though deep down they know they don't know everything. The know-it-alls just are afraid to look dumb, right? That's and so I really encourage every one of us to keep our minds and hearts open as we are in discussion with any topic within, you know, the spiritual context especially. But like I said, even out in the world, if you're wanting to learn something, asking questions, if you don't understand something, rather than sitting back and hoping it'll absorb in somehow, the likelihood is that asking the question will help your brain clear space and assimilate that information a lot better than just sitting back and hoping that we'll get it eventually, we'll understand it eventually. So with that, I wanted to open it up for questions, corrections, anything. Thank you for the opportunity to be with all of you today. So
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for this lecture or for this discussion. It felt more like a discussion, which was wonderful when you're going through the asking of the questions from Mahārāja Parīkṣit, and especially where you started, not just questions in this particular chapter, but you went to the beginning. What is the duty for everyone? So important. And then what is the duty for somebody that's going to die? We literally should thank Mahārāja Parīkṣit for coming up with those two questions. You know, later on in this chapter, of course, there's specifics that he answers. They're all pertinent questions. But what is the duty for everyone in this world? And then what is the duty for somebody who's about to die? Anyway, So that's my first comments, but since I'm the host, obviously I have to open it up. So dear devotees, you've heard the advantages of asking questions. Today, you definitely, I can't say you didn't hear it. And also, I just want to add that normally in ISKCON, it's one of the few places that when a lecture is given, time is also given an end for questions. And not only that, in many places that I've been, at least been in the class, the devotees, congregation, as we call them, assembly of devotees, sometimes the questions have taken more time than the lecture itself. Even that's happened in Chandamali Swami's class. Many times it happens. And as Mataji told you, this is how you get to know. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Everybody has something lingering in their mind, but then maybe if I say somebody's going to think I'm stupid or something, there are no stupid questions in devotion life. You want to go back to Godhead, so you need to know what it is that you have to, fix your life so you go back to Godhead. So first, I praise everybody for coming to listen in the first place. That's very important. That's what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do. That's the first thing. The most important is to chant, but the first thing to do is to hear. So coming on regularly like that is very good. Now it's just the next step of beginning to ask some questions. That's very important. so questions. So having said all of that,
Yeah.
now the floor is open for anyone who wants to ask
Floor
questions.
is open, yes. And Parīkṣit Prabhu, to kind of get back to your point about the very first question that Mahārāja Parīkṣit was asking, which is what is the duty, of and everyone out there. And that really sets the tone for us because it's such a broad question. It's like, what is the responsibility of everyone in every possible form? And it could seem like an extremely general question, the duty of all in all circumstances. But when we, as we know through Bhagavatam, and like I said, today I was only reading the questions. I wasn't here to answer any of them because that's the Sukadeva Goswami's job. But really, we know through reading this that the answer is actually, it's simple yet not, but it's simple. The responsibility is us to be devotees of the Lord, right? So that the duty is devotional service, and it's just how we can just understand that and really see that. And the duty is to the Shravanam Kirtanam, to hear, to chant. And King Parīkṣit is so beautifully providing that example for us, because when he's asking for for himself and any others that are in his situation that are about to die, what do we do as devotees when someone's leaving their body? We chant. We read from Bhagavatam, we read from Bhagavad Gita or Krishna book or something, and that is it, and help them, help them hear, help them remember the Lord in those final days. So it's what we're here to do. It's why we read Bhagavatam every day, right? So.
Some people may be in a situation at work where they can't get on camera and they can't ask
Totally
questions.
fine.
That's totally
Yeah.
understandable. But
Yeah,
if
I
you're in
get
a
it.
situation where, you can ask questions, the one thing that shouldn't stop anybody from asking a question is to think that people would say, I'm not that intelligent because of the kind of question I've asked. That should go from our minds.
Yeah.
Definitely should go from our minds. Because the real
Yeah.
purpose of life is to connect, and we got to know more. We
Yep.
got to
And
know more.
got to know more. There's so much
Yes.
to learn. There's so much to
Mhm.
learn. And, even if there's no questions, even if it's just, a discussion. And that's the thing too. It's, when we're amongst other devotees and we just getting Krishna Katha going is so powerful.
Yeah.
And, I think when we're in the presence of other devotees, that Katha can be so powerful to even just discuss a verse or to discuss an experience we had with a verse or in a class. And these are the reasons why, again, we get together in the morning, is to have this a little bit of katha. Not that you need to do that today exactly with me, but in general, I think using these classes as an opportunity to exercise that muscle a little bit. To get the muscle of kata going, because I think sometimes we might not even know how to carry out or like an organic conversation with a devotee that's revolves around kata. So often we might be sitting in the prasadam room, just chatting with a devotee, and we might just be talking about the prasadam and how we like it, or we might be talking about some other situation, and that's fine. But kata really takes, I think, it takes some skill to, and it takes that heart to say, oh, the deities, they look so beautiful today. And you could even starting there, like we can think about like what are some kata conversation starters, It's like when we're with devotees, how do we turn the conversation to kata? Because maybe it feels a little forced at first, that we're not sure how to talk about Krishna in a casual conversation with a devotee. Maybe we're not sure how to bring it up. And it's, of course, reading is the first way to get kata going, is if we share in a verse. Or if we somehow, like if we're in the temple room, like I said, we want to reflect on a class. Oh, that point that Prabhu brought up was really interesting. Or, like I said, looking at the deities and saying, oh, Radharani's dress was so beautiful today. The flowers were just really bringing out the pink in her cheeks. So these are just some thoughts to stimulate kata in the future. So, and with that, we can certainly wrap it up today, because it's back to school, busy start to the fall season.
So are there any comments or questions? Briefly, Mataji, I know has to go, but still you can ask.
Yeah.
Okay. If not, then thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Nanesh,
Thank you.
for coming. Very nice class to go over this whole overview of the questions asked by Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Every one of them was pertinent, very important questions. So thank you. This is a weekend now, and to have a nice, wonderful Krishna conscious weekend.
Vanchakalpatarubhyashta kripasindhu patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ki jai. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Glory to the Prabhupada.